I will call the meeting to order. This is interview committee A for Bloomington Transit Board. It is August 19th, 3:07 PM. I am Kate Rosenbarger, City Council District 2.
Opie Strasberg, District 3.
Jennifer Crossley, Clerk's Office.
Okay, so, is it okay to call you Perry?
Yes.
Right, and it is totally okay to call me Kate. Thank you for coming
Well,
today.
thank you for having, because I was flying back home on Thursdays.
Oh, yeah. It's always a lot to wrangle
Yeah.
with interviews.
Yeah.
So we pretty much have a set of questions that we ask all the candidates to try to keep everything the same, but we veer a little bit, of course, just as like you say something that we might have a follow-up question about. So we will just kind of head that direction. Our first question is about minority groups, so we have just asked everybody, so I will kick us off. Have you ever been part of a commission, council, or board that focused on the betterment and wellness of a specific community, particularly a minority group? If so, what was your role and what impact did it have?
So on a commission or board, well, I was the chair of the Commission on Transportation Disadvantage for the state of Florida. I was appointed by Governor Martinez. I served as chair 2 terms. And our focus was on disabled, lower income people. And it was quite the experience. I just thoroughly enjoyed doing that. And I got that role because in Brevard, in Florida, they have, each county has a transportation disadvantaged coordinator that coordinates all the various social service transportation and public transportation. So each county has that, and so it was quite the working with all of the various groups. Really neat.
Oh, good.
So yes, sorry.
That's
Yeah.
very
Long
interesting.
answer.
And you said
Oh,
each,
this wasn't a long answer.
no, it was not. If you said each county then had a coordinator for social services, transportation and public,
Right.
yeah.
Typically, it was this one and the same.
Yeah.
If you were transfer director for the county, you were also the CTC for the county. There were some instances where the public transit agency wasn't interested in it. That wasn't the case in most counties. So.
Interesting.
What do you want me to continue?
No, I'm good.
You're good. Okay, yes, okay. Okay.
I got it all. I listened at the same time as I did some copying and pasting. So the next question is, what inspired you to apply for this position on the Public Transportation Board of Directors? What draws you to the work and the mission of the board?
Well,
I know that
I'm
you
a
have like
Bloomington-
a background in that,
yes.
but besides that, I
Yes.
guess, like,
Well,
cause you're here,
yes.
you're, I'm assuming retired, so like,
Yes.
why do you wanna?
No, I
do
retired
this?
back in 2018 from IU, and I was the director of campus bus service. So I spent 12 years in the same building with Bloomington Transit and their staff and board members. So I would go to board meetings. And so my understanding was there was going to be an opening. And so I said, oh, okay, I can do this. And I've been in this, I actually worked for Bloomington Transit while I was in school back in 1973, when it was still a city department before it became its own public transportation corporation. So I think about it, if I'd stayed, I would have been like #1 on the seniority list. Say
Yeah.
everything is done by seniority
Yeah.
with the union contract. So, you know, with my background in public transportation, and I continue to stay up with it. I teach a class over at O'Neill,
Okay.
just in the fall semester, because I tell people if I did it both semesters, it'd be a job.
That's true.
And I finally got them down from the height of 47 students down to 30. And I have a 9-person waiting list.
Popular.
Yeah,
So
so
what is the class?
public transportation
Okay,
management.
it's just called Public Transportation Manager.
Yeah.
Cool.
Great. And you mentioned that, so when you used to share the building with them, you would interact with board members.
I would
Have
go to
you-
board meetings.
You would go to board meetings. How have you interacted with the board like since then? Are you kind of like up to speed on what's been going on? How much do you keep track of?
No, I would not say I'm completely up to speed. I read the B squared articles when they come out. And I haven't been to a board meeting since I retired.
Okay.
So,
Great. Right.
So I have a question. It's kind of like, how do you understand this board to be like to operate? And in a way, it's just a question of like, right, what do you think their role is in terms of Bloomington Transit? And I think I would just add on to that as another question that's, do you think anything is missing representation wise from the current board? And if so, would you bring skills and to like an experience to fill those gaps?
well, I have a lot of experience in public transportation and I was on a board, a statewide board. But I also worked with boards and elected officials. Because over the years, you could have your own board like this. I had one in Brevard County, and then we were taken over by the county, and I became the first county transit director. And it was a city, the Brevard Transportation Authority, which actually was the city of Melbourne. So you have to work with your board members, right? And as a staff person, but then as a board person, you have to work with the rest of the board, right? And it's very important that you have good relations with everybody when you're on the board. And my whole theory on this, having worked for boards and city and county commissions, you're there to make things happen, right? For them. They're the elected officials or the appointed officials, or even in the case of working with the union, they're elected, the president of that union. I'm not elected as the manager of the transit system. So you've got to be able to work together with everybody in all kinds of different, and I'll give you an example. So in Florida, each 5 years, they're required to have a transit development plan. It's like a strategic plan, it's state law. And so you have to take it to the county commission. And so when I took mine and we made our presentation, well, the consultant made the presentation, I was there, and I had two people with me. The chair of our Citizens Advisory Board, which was appointed by, there were 7 county commissioners, and each commissioner appointed 1 member. And then on the other side was the president of the union. And they both said the exact same thing, supporting what we wanted to do. Oh, and by the way, the chair of the Citizens Advisory Board was also the chair of the Republican Party in Palm Beach County. And the county commission chair came up to me after the meeting and was blown away that both the union president and the chair of the Citizens Advisory Board and chair of the Republican Party could both support what we were trying to do. So I think that's what I always try to keep in mind is you may be disagreeing with somebody today, but you need them to vote with you tomorrow when you're on a board. And that's how we ran the Commission on Transportation Disadvantaged had like 15 members. It was from all over the state. So you had people from Miami and Pensacola, and you were trying to get things done. And you have to get things done with just about everybody when it comes to doing things in the public. Because if somebody goes off, there can be issues, right? So that's my sort of personal philosophy on how you work in the public sector. You've got to have support. And you've got to be able to work with everybody. And they need to know you will work with them.
So kind of on that theme, Bloomington Transit serves people with very different transportation needs. And how should the board think about serving all of those needs?
I just found out I took the bus here from the route three from Kroger
Okay,
over. And, you know, the students are back. The last time I was on,
Yeah.
there weren't that many students. But we've also got a lot of issues. You know, there were people with mental health issues, and the driver had to say to the fellow, "You've got to put a shirt on before you come on the bus." So, you know, I think back to Bloomington in the 70s, when I first got here as a freshman in 1970, how it's changed. But, you know, I've lived in big cities. I lived in Miami, I lived in West Palm Beach. You know, you have issues, and you've got to work with them. And the people and the issues, you can't just walk away from them.
so since you just said that you took the bus here, do you ride the bus frequently?
I wouldn't say since I have been retired, but I do take it into campus, you know, because especially next Monday, you know, you don't want your car in a parking lot, right? Because
Right.
people are still thinking they can park anywhere, right? No, I haven't. When I lived downtown and worked at the garage on Grimes, I would take the bus from the old, where the buses met there at Washington and 4th Street, you know, on the corner. That was the old transfer center before the new one was built.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so, yeah, you know, and I would take the bus into campus, because the 7 would go right by on Walnut, and I could take it in instead of driving.
And so that's what you do now, like when you teach your class in the fall?
I won't say every day.
Right, but
yeah,
that's
yeah.
like, it's not infrequent
No,
that,
yeah.
it's
I
like
mean,
one of
well-
your kind of normal options.
Well, because I'm asking the students one of their projects will be, give me a write-up on your experience commuting into campus, whether it's bicycling,
Right,
park and ride to the stadium, or taking a BT bus, so.
so then you also consider your commutes into campus.
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful, thank you.
I want to follow up on the different needs question. Do you think Bloomington Transit is currently meeting the needs of its riders?
Well, it seems so. I mean, I think the routes, you know, there's been restructuring over the last few years. Like the 7 is no longer, it's the 1, right? But, you know, so, I mean, I haven't really studied it in depth, but it seems to me that, you know, the feedback I get from the students, and over the years, I've had hundreds of them, and they've all done this project since 2018. So, is good, you know, but you have to understand that many people come here and this is the first time they've ever used public transit, if they're from Indiana.
Oh, yeah.
Even Indianapolis, you know, people in Carmel and Fishers, they've never been on public transit. So it's neat to have out of state or out of the country students, because they are users of public transit and given me a lot of insights, like how to best way to get to the freest way to get to New York City, take the Staten Island ferry. Because it's free and it runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Get to Staten Island.
That's good to
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So, you know, I can't really, you know, say I know everything about what's going on. That would be crazy for me to say that, so.
Right. Go back to, because I skipped a few.
I know, we're kind of jumping around, but
We
based
also
on
kind
our
of jumping
conversation,
around.
yes.
Yeah. Here's a interesting one to hear from you about. What ideas do you have to create impactful private and or public partnerships?
Well,
Initiatives that can address challenges to Bloomington Transit, and of
Well,
course, since you
yeah.
were with IU for a number of years.
well, you know, I think that partnership has been great. I always reckoned it as having a roommate. You can share all your expenses. Right? You know, the power bill, you know, the cleaning, whatever it is. And I think that relationship is the most important. And having worked in Gainesville, Florida, where it was the city operation and there was no campus service, owned or operated by the university. But when I first got there, my second day of the job, meeting with people at UF, they basically said, if you guys don't clean up public transit from the city of Gainesville, we're gonna start our own service. And I asked them to give me a year, and they did. And to this day, and that was 1996, so it's still operated by the city of Gainesville by a person that I hired. Who's been there all those years since. But so that city, town, gown, city, university relations, that's the first one. I've also done a lot in private sector contracting. That was a big, that will go back to the first Bush administration. That's how far back, and really even into the end of the Reagan administration, where there were a lot of initiatives by US DOT and the Federal Transit Administration to have private-public partnerships. So one of the things we did in Brevard County, we contracted out the maintenance of all the buses, and to this day, it's still going on. The contract has been renewed and put out for bid. So I have gone through those kinds of things. In Palm Beach County, we had a huge contract for paratransit services. Because in Florida, it's a big deal to have door-to-door services. It's a huge market because with older population, Florida now is what the rest of the country will be like in 30 or 40 years, as far as the number of disabled people and senior citizens. So it was a huge contract. And so we had to do that in the private sector. So I'm familiar with that kind of stuff. So.
Okay. Can we go back to the IU and Bloomington Transit relationship again? Because I know one of the things that we've talked about generally over the years is those two systems merging and there just being one transit system in Bloomington. What's your perspective on that?
I think there are a lot of pluses for it. Federal funding, there is funding on the table that we're not getting for intensive use systems aimed mostly at university communities. There's state funding that's on the table. And if you think about, now I'm dated on because ridership has gone down since COVID all across public transit. And unlike airlines, it hasn't come back yet. Certain metropolitan areas are getting close. LA, for instance, is almost to where it was. It just has been a long haul to get people. Most of it, a lot of it is just people not going back to work in a big city, right? In Denver, it's been horrible to get ridership back. And they're, much lower. But anyhow, off on a tangent there. But there's the ridership at BTE or at Campus Bus is about 3 million a year. And I think Bloomington Transit's 4 or 5 million a year, something like that. Well, if that's my last information.
We're down to about 2.5. And we were at 3.5.
Okay, that was, yeah.
Campus bus is at 3 million a year.
Well, it was,
Well, that's-
I'm sure it's down from what it
Okay.
was, but my information is dated.
Okay.
But nationwide ridership is down, but there's still ridership there and it's not being counted in any state or federal formula. And those are important.
Interesting.
Are you happy with that
Yes, yes.
line of questioning? Okay. Because something you said too, I wanted to jump to paratransit and ET access like we have here. And I guess, kind of to the best of your ability, how you see balancing paratransit with fixed route buses and maybe, where you see that going in the future here.
Well, I'm a big advocate based on my experience, for people with disabilities having access to door-to-door services. you know, I saw the industry over the year fight that. I mean, I was at conferences where people in wheelchairs were chaining themselves to the front bumpers of a bus in protest that there weren't wheelchair lifts. And then we got the ADA. Was really happy to get the ADA because in Brevard County, we did not, I got there in 83, we did not have lifts on any of our buses. And I said to the board, okay, we need to retrofit and we need to buy all of our new buses with lifts. And we did that before 1991. And so, and the paratransit services, the door-to-door, you know, yeah, again, an example from Brevard County, we would do the Space Coast Symphony always did a holiday at one of the mega churches, a free concert. And we ran all the buses on a Sunday from all the nursing homes. And we had county commissioners. There were 5, not 3 like here, but coming to help and saying, wow, this is the best thing. And I think it really, I mean, having gotten the calls from people who had issues using paratransit and trying to help them get through it, it's really important that, you know, they don't have alternatives for the most part, right? And we're that alternative. And I think we got to keep that in mind. First priority are for people who really have no alternatives. And you know, we did a lot of stuff in Florida. For instance, one of the things we did was instead of having Medicaid pay for paratransit trips, because Medicaid's just a low income medical, right? It's not about being disabled. Now, people are disabled on Medicaid. But so by giving them a monthly bus pass, they were able to go anywhere. And it was transferable within the family. So instead of just going to a doctor's appointment once a month, they had access to countywide public transit. I think it's important to work within the system that's you know set up, but we have to have that as the highest priority. I really don't see anything else higher than that.
What about the micro transit? So in the past couple of years, Bloomington Transit has really expanded their micro transit, not just the access, but like micro transit for everybody.
Well, I think that's
micro transit.
It's a great new concept. And I think it's sort of new, so new at this point, it'd be hard to evaluate its effectiveness because it's only been a couple of years. So it's a tool in the toolbox. It's just like, you know, we now have bus trackers. I was standing there at the right time and going, okay, I took it out and it was delayed a few minutes coming around from, well, I'm sure at the mall because you don't want to go to Target, right?
I mean, I
Yeah, so yeah, it was 5 minutes late, so it was fine. But those are great, you know, it's great to have real-time information instead of looking at a schedule that was put together months ago, right? And didn't know there was a snowstorm going to be there that day, right? So I think technologically, we have done a lot in public transit over the last 50 years in changing things. And so I think microtransit is just one of those new tools that we now have that we couldn't have done 20 years ago.
To change gears again,
Mhm.
what is one thing that you can name that you might identify as the largest problem with transit, and how would you work to change that as a board member?
Well, if you go back historically, public transit and urban development, right? The biggest challenge we have in public transit is making sure that they're aligned together, okay? And why does public transit work in a town like this? Well, think about the campus, right? It's walkable, parking is scarce, or it's over at the stadium. And you've got people choosing to use the service, even though a lot of students can afford a car and they would like to park everywhere, you know, on campus everywhere, right? And they do. like at the Kelly Garage, that's the cash cow for parking operations hourly rates. But so it's, I think we've got to kind of go back to our roots of, if we have a community that's walkable, that's pleasant to be in without a, that you don't need a car. And I think that's where, if you look around the nation, you know, New York has bounced back, okay, from COVID. Denver, yeah, there's pockets, you know. Boulder is a beautiful, you know, college town, right? And you love going down Pearl Street Mall and, you know, downtown Denver, but it's a spread out over what, 7 counties or something, the metro area, and it hasn't come back to the level of ridership it had before COVID. And a lot of it, you've got to look at as, is it based on the development pattern of, they're spread out, way spread out, right? And so, you know, I think Bloomington has a lot going for it when it comes to having a walkable community that's, you don't have to, you know, you can do park once kind of thing and walk around, you know, or take the bus to campus and downtown. So it wasn't a bad walk to walk over from the transfer station here. So
And like, so you're.
that's almost academic, isn't it?
Yes,
And
I'm like, what
getting
you're
ready for
saying
class
is, like,
Monday.
in the built environment, make
Yeah.
sure there's
Yeah.
room for buses and.
Yes,
Yeah,
Right.
right.
it has to be part of it, just as it
Yeah.
was at the turn of the last century, you
Right.
know, when they were building streetcar suburbs, Shaker Heights outside of Cleveland, Coral Gables outside of Miami. You know, they were doing it the same, okay? It wasn't just an add-on or an extra thought. It was part and parcel of what they were trying to do. And we got away from that.
Right.
You know, we just have gotten away from it. But in college towns, we really have a step up above just an ordinary town of 50 or 60,000 people would have.
Okay.
That's why we like living here, right? That's why I came back. I knew I didn't want to stay in Florida.
All right. You dashed around.
I know,
Sorry.
I'm scrolling too. No, it's good how. Too bad. I think this is the question we asked a couple that we could ask to Perry, that we've been chatting about. So the BT board is 5 members and it could be 7. And so I think with your history with Campus Bus and BT, what do you think? Do you think 5 serves BT well? Or do you think 7 would? I mean.
Well, it does give you a
different.
chance to add on other people. You know, I don't think 5 or 7 is a sacred kind of number. But certainly 7 isn't so huge that it would be out of control. You know, Denver they reformed their elected board. They had a 15-member board for the RTD, and the legislature just changed that to everybody appointed by the governor. Sounds kind of familiar, but so they went away from the electing board members from 15 districts that they had from the beginning since like 1969. So, you know, that's, I think, really the purview of the city council to make that decision as to the size of the board, whether it's 5 or 7 or 9. I haven't worked with big boards. And,
I think for me, that is my last question.
Yeah, I think that I'm good too. Is there anything else that you want us to know or anything that you just want to add to or
Well-
things that you wanted to make sure to say? that we
Well,
haven't
the
given
one thing I would is that if I were appointed, I would try to work with everybody. And I know that that's very important, getting things moving, to keep things moving, that you cannot, sort of, go. Like I said earlier, you may disagree, but you can't be disagreeable and disagreeing. And you got to know that later on, you may need their support. You want their vote on something else. So, to my mind is you've got to be able to work with everybody. Now, that's not going to be easy. But I think that's got to be what you have to keep in mind on something like this, because, you're appointed by city council or the mayor, you're going to have that relationship, right? But you're going to have your own judgment because that was what the appointment was all about, right? You were appointed because the appointing body felt like you could do the job. So that's always been how I felt about working with boards or being on a board.
Great.
I think I even managed to keep my notes in order.
I don't have an order. What are you talking about?
So if I can, right, the only thing that I was gonna say from the clerk's office perspective is that council committee will deliberate, and then once they figure out who they will, like who they recommend, that's a good word. They have to do that in a public meeting, so, they'll have to do that at a regular session, city council meeting, of course. Right now they're in budget cycle, and
Right.
so, whatever the decision is to be made, you'll hear from me either way.
Okay.
So I just wanna, let you know that as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and our next regular session meeting is not until September. So that's the earliest, that that's
September
session, yeah, and make that recommendation.
Well, thank you.
Great, thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Thank you for coming and bringing folks. Yeah.
Thank you.
You are welcome, and you can, catch the rest of this on Zoom or in person. That's fine. Okay. Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Yep.
So, is it?
Yeah, I just realized that I do not have my notes totally in order, but.
Do we, so I think our orders were to talk about our candidates. And recommend someone that would then be discussed at city council. And I'm okay with that. I do wish Esop was here, but it's okay. I think we had a good discussion last time too. And I think this is a pretty important board, and people might have questions, council members might have questions, and we can just talk more about the process here and the candidates, I think, a little bit in our next regular session, where we recommend someone.
It just kind of messed something up. As long as I fix it right after we get out of this. But. One of our considerations last week, depended on what happened at the BTV last night.
It was just delayed.
It was delayed.
Yes. So they did not vote on anything.
And their next meeting isn't until September 15th.
Great.
So I think with that,
Sure that we-
I know, I think too, we could take that into consideration either way. I think we could say we could wait until after that meeting. We could also recommend someone without considering that meeting. It's not that we need to.
Yeah, I think that at this point, I'm not sure that I want to push it off.
I'm just always, it's only my hair.
Your hair looks beautiful.
It's just like an animal.
Floofy, I
Sorry.
feel like my hair's having problems today, but whatever.
Um,
So
I'm okay getting into it, and I think I kind of fall in the same space as our last meeting, when Isak was here too. I think, and I mean, I have thought about this more. You know, the first thing is, I think these 4 candidates are excellent. I think, it's rare that we have so many good candidates for one, board position.
it's really interesting.
Mhm. And they all bring some overlapping skills and experiences and some that are different. Last meeting, I would say I lean toward mixing things up a little bit on the board because I get the impression that things are not working well, not working super well right now. And so I would say I favor like the kind of a fresh perspective and like data-driven decision making that Zach brings with an added bonus of a transit writer.
I'm thinking really hard right now. For those of you who can't see me, like out in the world, I'm thinking really hard right now.
While you're thinking,
I guess like I'm conflicted, you can say, between the experience and what you just said that Zach brings in terms of the data driven stuff.
Mhm.
I really think that I may be strongly convinced that we need to expand this board to 7. And we of course can't do that until the CCP meeting because I kind of think that both of those voices would be good on it. And I also like Harry is very interesting because he has a lot of experience, but it's really most recently from the IU perspective, which is really different, I think. And is also kind of interesting. And I can't, and one of the things about this board, her state code is there has to be a split, a political split. So we can't have anybody of just one party or another, and that they have to be split. And so I think one of the things that I wrote in my notes last time was, well, we should look into that with our candidates to see if like what political parties they do identify with, and in terms of expanding that to 7, that might be problematic to try to keep the balance per state code that's required. But I would be very interested in that because I do feel like, I mean, I feel like all 4 of them could make slightly different but very valuable contributions. And one thing that we said about Hank last time was like, well, maybe he should be attending these anyway sometimes as part of his role in the city. And so that could be a way to get his perspective and voice in that space a little bit more, and some of the data that he brings to that. But even with the other 3, so I guess, yeah, I guess I'm most tied, I think, between Zach and Kent in terms of Kent and Perry having similar experience, but Kent's is more BT versus Perry's is more IU focused at this point. Yeah,
I
guess that's
feel,
where-
I
that's
think
where
the
I'm-
same, and I think too, I do think policy wise and priorities wise for Bloomington Transit, I do like where like Zach and Kent and Hank land on increasing frequency and,
Yeah,
convenience, right? And like predictability that, with lessening resources, decreasing resources, you know, we have to kind of decide sometimes and like what that looks like for micro transit and versus fixed routes. I tend to agree, I guess, with that approach.
they, all three of them were pretty negative about microtransit and Perry was more neutral about it.
Or, I mean, they were saying we need it and we do it and we can continue to look at how to innovate that or, you know,
Yeah.
reach more people, but that our bus system needs more frequency.
Right.
Almost, they all said
Right.
that overall to get
Yeah.
more people riding
Yeah,
and choosing it. And I really liked that.
I find it interesting that Perry brought up that, that idea of the university may be concerned that, that the city transit system wouldn't support their students enough, because that was something that, I don't remember which applicant said that. Cause Isak, you know, brought that out, like, what do you think I use? Resistance to that was, I think it was Ken.
I think it was
under
Kent too that.
And
they
he was like,
maybe
well,
don't
making
wanna-
sure that we serve their student.
Don't want to give up the
Well enough.
control of, or that.
No, I think that was, the control was somebody
Okay,
else. I
okay.
think Kent was one of them, and I think it was Kent, was like, they want to make sure that their students are served very well, and that there would be fear that their students wouldn't be as prioritized if it was all under BT. And it's interesting because Perry has that experience from being the municipal transit person, ensuring that the university and the town
Mhm.
did, like, their students did end up feeling served by the system. So I find that really interesting because that's another theme that comes through here, but this is such a hard choice right now.
I think there are two hard choices, who and then when, and I think. Right, I was just looking at something about paratransit, that scaling up paratransit does not see the same ROI as scaling up fixed routes, and the micro transit fills in those gaps, and I
Right.
like that.
Right.
So, right, I think it is because we're in the 90 days of,
Yeah.
our time to
Yeah.
reappoint or appoint. I'm struggling on the timeline, so I wanna think about it for a second.
What do you mean?
Like,
We want to
about-
not make a decision today?
Right,
Okay,
I
I'm on
wonder,
board with not making a decision today.
Mhm.
It does look like the 90 days for Ken can go through October.
Like,
So that gives us.
yeah,
plenty
I
of
think that's
time.
better so open door law rules, like. We can talk one-on-one to fellow council members, even though we can also, I'm happy to talk at a regular session about it. Even before we all meet again, because this feels like a pretty important decision and all we're doing is recommending. So it
Yeah.
can change on council day, right, who we vote for.
It's probably less dramatic if it doesn't.
Right, but
If
it
we have
can,
colleagues that are.
and that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't think there is a harm in waiting.
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean, especially since we can't make a decision until September anyway, like, we can't, our next council meeting isn't until September. And I really, I find it unfortunate that they postponed that piece of action yesterday, because that could potentially, you know, make our decision a little bit easier. Depending on what they do there and in terms of our applicants and their continued interest in service. And I also am interested to hear, you know, thinking of the 7 versus 5. That is something that I was gonna bring up at the CCP meeting, and that is not until the end of this month. I think it's the 31st.
It is.
And that's just when the next meeting is. And I want to at least know from my 3 colleagues there what their thoughts on that are, but that could also be something that gets prefaced, you know, that we also speak with our colleagues about, and especially with the stuff going on in BT right now.
right,
This might. And I mean, clearly it's engaging more people because we actually have members of the public.
probably the most
At
attended,
an
most
interview
attended
meeting.
interview, committee meeting of all
Ever.
time.
In 3 years.
Yes.
And so I think it's really important do as much due diligence as we can
Mhm.
for this appointment.
And yes,
I was gonna say, it doesn't look like they necessarily like delayed it. I think state law was like, because it
Mhm.
has with the contract. It looks like they have to introduce it, and it's like a first reading. So
Mhm.
yesterday would have technically been the first reading,
Okay,
and so
okay.
next meeting, which is in September, is their second, where
okay.
they would be able to vote. I don't
No
think
harm anybody,
anybody, yeah,
No, like, I mean, even if they had delayed it, like,
right, right.
sometimes big decisions need to get
Right.
delayed.
right.
Yeah.
I think too, I just like. The context of all this is unique right now in this timeline, and I think. I do lean mixing things up and, I just liked a lot of like what Zach said about the role of the board to like push priorities. Like in a very professional way, and I really like that. I think too, having a current board member, and I totally understand all this, serving a very long time, which is super awesome. And also kind of being done if a decision happens a certain way.
Oh, yeah.
That I think that is okay, and I think it is just like, right, serving for so long and feeling like maybe, you'd be like, hey, I just feel over it in some way. Where again, that just kind of, I don't think that's a wrong feeling, but it does also kind of make me lean,
Right.
new blood in there
Yeah.
to, yeah.
And I think maybe that's another one of my things though, because with only 5 members, it's like whenever like a single new person, I'm not sure how long any of the rest of them have been serving. But depending on that, it could all of a sudden be like, wow, that like we've suddenly lost institutional memory because, and I mean, yeah, so with only 5 members, it definitely feels like that's a little bit easier to do just in any group
Mhm.
anywhere.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that also for me makes this decision a little bit harder too. Once again, goes back to I think that 7 might
I know,
be better for,
it's a tiny board, really,
yeah.
for BT,
Well, and especially for how important it is.
right,
And how much they are responsible for,
I know,
like, that's.
Right.
Yeah.
okay. So today we'll say no action and we'll schedule another meeting, and I assume everyone watching now is excited about that. And, I think we just need to get with Isak then to figure out when he might be able to zoom in or, right, be here in person, especially if we wait until after the meeting. I guess we need to decide right now if we want to wait until after the BT meeting. Okay, we don't have to engage the public, but I did just see public comment that folks were like, well, let's wait.
Yeah, I think in some ways waiting would be good, and
Yeah.
other ways, the other thing I was just looking through and thinking about any other business that we might have as a board, as we do, I think, have that vacancy on Commission on the Status of Black
Oh, our
Males.
committee, yeah,
Yes, our committee.
sorry, yeah.
And there's no current applications for that, so maybe we can, because I know that Isak is traveling right now, so maybe we can give scheduling another meeting like a week or something.
Okay.
Because Isak is supposed to be back next week, correct? I'm pretty sure because he said he was not gonna be there for this week's budget
Okay.
hearings.
Okay.
But there was an implication that he would be here for next week's budget
Okay.
hearing, so I believe that he will be back next week. And, we can cross our fingers that maybe by then there'll be some applicants for Commission on Status of Black Males, and so then we can have those to consider. So hey, out there, if anybody is interested in serving on the Commission of Status of Black Males, there's a vacancy there, please apply.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think we're kind of no action, and then we're pushing the decision on when to have a next meeting until at least next week. And then.
Oh.
then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because then we can look at our availability via email and schedule something.
Right, and then,
Right.
and we can also know if we have any applicants for Commission on Status of Black Males.
Cause there was the press release that just went out, I wanna say last week. So hopefully we can get some type of traction. I also have been in communication with, since students are coming back. There's an emoji day that's happening.
Oh, yeah.
This, and so I think I might go, just to see if we can generate some interest with students with boards and commissions, because when I've gone last year to talk to various groups, we have had some students that have applied
Okay.
and have actually been appointed to a couple of the boards and commissions. So that might be something that we could get to.
Great.
And then I just want to highlight this comment that was just made.
Yeah.
A potential new person is unlikely to change the vote, but waiting is not bad either. I don't have a strong opinion on that.
Oh. Right, it's all realistic.
Okay. So that's our plan.
Any other business?
Have anything else? So I think the other thing is I can do maybe like a poll. And figure out when everybody is back, and then we can get everything scheduled so you can deliberate again.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you to the members of the public who have come to engage in interview committee meetings.
Yeah,
So
thank
exciting.
you. Thanks, everybody. See you tonight.
You have to.
Adjourn, we're adjourned.